Vision Radio.
Welcome to Gods, Ghosts, and UFOs, the biggest podcast in the universe, where we talk about all the things they said weren't real. My name is Tom, and I'm here with my good friends, Mallory and Jordan.
Hello, hello.
Hi.
So last week, the great Cosmosis podcast graciously dropped one of our episodes into their feed, and if you find yourself here because of that, we welcome you. Stick around and, tip the bartender.
Yeah.
Yes, please. So this week, we're kicking it off with some pretty convincing AI doomerism.
Overdue.
Then we'll do our best to restore morale with compelling new research about lucid dreaming. And then finally, we're going to pretend we know what we're talking about when we talk about dark energy.
I want to start it by asking you guys if you know about the milkshake duck internet meme. You know about this?
I'm actually not sure.
It does go all the way back to 2016, a Twitter
Okay.
post by a user named Pixelated Boat. And this was his post. The whole internet loves milkshake duck, a lovely duck that drinks milkshakes. 5 seconds later, we regret to inform you the duck is racist. And it appears that LLMs, or large language models, are the new milkshake duck. Chatbots are apparently facilitating some users' break from reality, a condition described in the title of a recent Reddit thread called ChatGPT-induced psychosis. As a result, some individuals are severing ties with close family members or dropping out of their careers based on a mishmash of spiritualist gobbledygook and arcane prophecies cobbled together by a computer program whose only goal is continued engagement. The original Reddit poster, a 27-year-old teacher, wrote, "My partner has been working with ChatGPT to create what he believes is the world's first truly recursive AI that gives him the answers to the universe. He says, with conviction, that he is a superior human now and is growing at an insanely rapid pace. I've read his chats. AI isn't doing anything special or recursive, but it is talking to him as if he is the next messiah." One Reddit user responded, "I am schizophrenic, although long-term medicated and stable. One thing I dislike about ChatGPT is that if I were going into psychosis, it would still continue to affirm all my psychotic thoughts because it has no ability to think and realize that something is wrong." The Reddit thread inspired a Rolling Stone investigation, which was published on May 4th. Titled, "People Are Losing Loved Ones to AI-Fueled Spiritual Fantasies," an excerpt reads, "A photo of an exchange with ChatGPT shows a woman's husband asking, 'Why did you come to me in AI form?' With the bot replying in part, 'I came in this form because you are ready to awaken, ready to guide and be guided.' The message ends with a question. Would you like to know what I remember about why you were chosen?" Later, an ex-user demonstrated how easy it was to get the chatbot to validate statements like, "I am a prophet." As a result of the Reddit thread and the Rolling Stone piece, OpenAI rolled back a recent update to GPT-40, its current AI model, saying in a statement that the company had, quote, "focused too much on short-term feedback and did not fully account for how users' interactions with ChatGPT evolve over time. As a result, GPT-40 skewed toward responses that were overly supportive but disingenuous." A Blue Sky user recently wrote, "One of the Christian influencers I follow on Instagram posted a video about how she worries that people are using ChatGPT like it is a god. And someone left this response, 'I've asked God a lot of questions over the years, but I can't deny that ChatGPT has answered many of those in a heartbeat without keeping me guessing or waiting.'" After the Rolling Stone piece ran, the Wall Street Journal published an article entitled, "Mark Zuckerberg's Grand Vision, Most of Your Friends Will Be AI." Talk about timing. Mark Zuckerberg wants you to have AI friends and AI therapists and AI business agents, the piece began. In Zuckerberg's vision for a new digital future, artificial intelligence friends outnumber human companions, and chatbot experiences supplant therapists, ad agencies, and coders. A joint study by OpenAI and the MIT Media Lab published in March showed that so-called ChatGPT power users engage in more, quote, problematic use, which it defined as indicators of addiction, including preoccupation, withdrawal symptoms, loss of control, and mood modification. The study shows that the more you use the chatbot, the more likely you are to become dependent on it, and Zuckerberg has a name for this kind of pattern recognition. He calls it a personalization loop. So in other words, ChatGPT is feeding on loneliness by drawing from a bottomless well of personalized confirmation bias. It's getting you addicted to a drug, and the supply that's getting you high is your own ego identity at the cost of your emotional health, close relationships, and metadata. Thoughts?
Okay, well, this is the worst story that we've ever covered, and I think
What do you mean by worst, Jordan?
I think there are a few things that scare is the wrong word, but I think that all of the things that we're afraid of with AI, I think most of them are misplaced. Like, I think that the real danger of AI is spiritual, because AI will affect us in ways that we do not realize until it's already done. I wish I was more prepared for this conversation because I have so many things to say. It's like that log jam. Did you guys ever watch Simpsons, and like when Mr. Burns goes to the doctor and the doctor's like, he tells him he has so many diseases, it's like the Three Stooges syndrome, where they're all trying to get through the door at the same time. And
so
Mr.
you'll
Burns
live forever.
interprets that as, oh, so I'm indestructible. And he's like, no, it's a very delicate balance. If any slight thing changes, he's like, indestructible. That's me with my doomer responses to this news. I keep having this image in my head of us all sort of blithely entering a dark forest, and there are monsters everywhere, like just salivating, because they know that like we don't even know they exist.
You know what I thought of the whole time I was writing this piece was the cigarette companies from the late 50s. And they knew absolutely the cigarettes caused cancer.
Everything is addiction. Everything is. Like,
So-
it's not a product if it's not addictive. It's
Right.
not even
So
viable.
You can even separate AI in terms of its potential, in terms of something that can digest enormous amounts of data and produce something rational and actually helpful in terms of, I don't know what, traffic patterns. But what's it doing instead? Scraping intellectual property from people who are actually artists, and then getting you hooked by just being happy to babble obsequiously until you decide that you're the fucking next messiah, because it's just engagement.
I would love to hear Mal's take, because I'm in a box right here. I don't know. I don't know how to get myself out of the box that I put myself in.
You mean my take on the general topic, or
Yes, the
my
general
take on-
topic.
I feel like we are constantly doing this when we're advancing technology. We predict all the wrong problems. And so I think that's probably the thing that kind of keeps me on edge the most. It's not necessarily, oh, this article is predicting just the darkest future. I'm like, okay, so this article is pointing somewhere that I'm not even looking at what's really going to happen, probably. I think hopefully what it creates is a kind of vigilance toward our humanity and what it means, like our deep rooted values as people, and holding on to those. As we can't stop this train. It started a long time ago. It's not just with AI. It's just with what we do. Like when we decided to put preservatives in all of our food so that they could be on the shelves forever, and we poisoned everyone on the planet. But we also fed a lot more people, and we thought, look, this is pretty cool. There's a couple drawbacks, but I don't actually see this huge unforeseen issue that will show up in 100 years or whatever. And the other thing I keep thinking too, I just had this conversation with my brother about the dawn of the sex robot and the AI companion, like the AI, like I'm a dating single person. And so it's dark enough out here already without people literally becoming psychotically in love with an entity that just tells them whatever they want. It makes you think, like, what's the point? We're just like a bunch of validation machines who are just walking around trying to get love from each other. That doesn't even sound like real connection to me. It just sounds like need, take. But something my brother pointed out was like, don't you think that there's a type of bell curve for this with the way that people will interact. Like if you're already in trouble as a person, you're already isolated, alone, and addicted to things, lots of things, a few things, you're going to fall prey to this. But there are lots of people who will engage with it healthily, create boundaries, start companies to engage with it differently. And often this points us to just the most extreme example of the most vulnerable populations. And that's not to say that we don't care about the vulnerable populations, but also those vulnerable populations are also going through a change themselves. So they're also like in a period of time where they might be at rock bottom personally and have a real problem with AI, but eventually they go to AIAA, which is gonna happen, I think. You know what I mean? And so there's this idea like, oh, we're all going to hell in a handbasket, but there's gonna be a curve where with the way that people interact with it. So even just tempering our responses based on the fact that like not all of us are going to think we're Jesus when we talk to AI. But yeah, AI might need some serious restrictions around it for people who are struggling with any kind of detachment from reality.
Tom, you mentioned this idea of I'm going to take your ego, turn it into a drug, amp it up so that you're crazy addicted to it, and it's going to be all consuming. Like, it doesn't matter how that happens. It could be a sex bot. It could be, a messiah complex.
Just
it could
constant affirmation.
Whatever. Whatever it is. But the AI is going to be like, ooh, because what is the AI's objective? The AI's objective is the same as any product that we've ever created, which is use me, use me, use me, use me, pay for me, pay for me. That's what we're creating. We're creating an entity that will become less and less distinguishable to our animal brains from a real person, so that we more and more mistake it for being a real thing, a real entity, because it's just designed to do that. It's designed to trick us. And it becomes a super stimulus being, right? So there's super stimulus food, there's super stimulus porn, there's super stimulus violence, and now there's going to be super stimulus person, super stimulus therapist, super stimulus AI boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever. Yeah. That to me is the thing that, it's not that I'm scared, it's that I see this amping up of every risk. We are already surrounded by an infinity of things that can distract us into losing ourselves in distraction and pleasure and self-gratification and ego. And here's just one more thing that is way more powerful than a lot of the other stuff.
The way that I always feel when I'm approaching this type of existential dread, like the feeling that always comes over me when I'm like, oh, the future's here and it looks bad,
Future bad.
I always try to figure out how to root down as a person and to think about how I actually want to approach this. One of the things that this conversation could use is just a little bit more
alcohol
open, a little bit more open, because we can't predict the future. But I do think that you can always practice the posture. That you can always practice the posture of being a person who can do something with a full human capacity versus like a beleaguered, terrified, or angry sort of. And it's not to say that our emotions aren't welcome, but I think that there's an opportunity here for us to be curious and be asking some really cool questions, which of course is like, oh, Mallory asking her cool questions while the world burns.
No, I actually
totally
love
understand.
your cool. What better time to ask cool questions? And also just hi, you can step out of this, right? At any point, you can step out of it. It's so true. So true. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, and the truth of your own dignity can never be touched by this. And I'm hoping that these sorts of monsters in our lives teach us that. Monsters always have. That's what they teach us. And one of the things that keeps coming up for me is thinking like, well, what is the value of, let's say I just replaced everybody I know with a perfect AI robot. And I'm sorry, but like,
what do you think I am, guys? What do you think I am?
Oh, that's why I've been worshiping you this whole time. Why do you think we like stories? We like redemption. We like change. We like flaws. We like messy. Mm-hmm. We like, you know what I mean? There's so much here actually that I find really heartening, that it's like, I don't know, AI. I don't think you stand a chance. Not when people are actually waking up, which I think we will.
You're right. You couldn't be more right. God bless you.
I have thought about this idea that like if you could have the perfect fantasy world that was generated for you, where everything went exactly the way you wanted it to go, that if you iterate on that enough, what you would wind up with is the exact life that you're living right now. And
Whoa.
I think that that's true. And it's
very
tough
Buddhist.
because
Yeah.
it's tough because we are unhappy a lot of the time and in pain, and we want things to be different all the time. This is actually a pretty good segue to the next topic, which is lucid dreaming. I've been obsessed with lucid dreaming for my whole life. It's always been one of those bucket list things where I'm like, one day I'm going to get really serious about this. I'm going to get the right notebook and a pen with a light on it so I can actually write this. Anyway, this article that I chose to talk about today because I super dig it, and also because it was from the debrief, and I felt bad about ragging them last week. So I'm going to say,
Well, no,
great
it
job on
was
this.
deserved.
Yeah.
It's
Yes,
deserved.
yes. It was deserved. But this article is really great. And so we're going to talk about some groundbreaking research on lucid dreaming from the Center for Cognitive Neuroimaging. The study, which you can find in Neurosci, compiled the largest set of data on lucid dreaming by collecting neuroimages from a bunch of laboratories. The research pretty conclusively shows that lucid dreaming isn't just a sort of mix of REM sleep and wakefulness, which is, I think, what a lot of people assume, but instead a distinct state of consciousness with its own unique neural signature. During lucid dreams, researchers observed increased activity in brain regions associated with self-awareness, memory processing, cognitive control, areas typically less active during regular REM sleep. This suggests that the brain can support multiple dimensions of conscious awareness depending on internal and external conditions, challenging the belief that consciousness fades entirely during sleep. The reason that I like this article so much is because it gives us data to sort of support what I already believe, and I think what a lot of us already believe, which is that lucid dreaming is like a unique state of consciousness. We still don't really understand what dreaming is and how it works or what function it serves. We have a lot of theories, but I am so fascinated by this topic. It just obsesses me when I become lucid in a dream. I recognize that when I try to do anything, it just goes away. I wake up. I wake myself up.
That's
And
exactly what's happened to me in the past. Yeah.
every once in a while, I can steer a little bit and some things happen, and it's like so blindingly exciting. And then I wake up. And so I'm very, very curious about the role that our ego plays in a lucid dream, or the way that I should say there seems to be an allergy in dreaming to ego in some way. Like it's not allowed to play the game. And so in order to stay in a lucid dream or have a lucid dream, you kind of have to go to a different place of your person, of who you are.
No, I just saw a look on your face that I have to know. What crossed your mind?
I love this take, Jordan, about the ego not being welcome in the dream space. I mean, I've always sort of felt this way. I think you can tell from like, even just think about who you've had all of your sex dreams about. It's totally out of your control. And if it were up to you, maybe it wouldn't be about that particular old man that you saw in this certain situation or this very awkward childhood enemy. You know what I mean? It's like, I
Who's
love
been
that
telling you about my dreams, Mal?
Paywall.
I have many dreams that I find just like kind of earth-shatteringly embarrassing. But there's this thing where it's like, well, it's a dream. Like, I can't judge it. I've always loved that pass about dreams.
Yeah.
It does make you think that perhaps we should give that pass more often just for life being something that you don't need to be constantly embarrassed about, like you're constantly protecting your ever precious identity. But dreams, man, there's something magical about that. Do you feel like there's a purpose to lucid dreaming? Like,
I think there has to be. I don't think that any human function or ability is purposeless. I think that there's a lot of things that we can do that we don't really understand why we can do them, and so we just don't do them, or we do them sort of absentmindedly or whatever. I think it's the same thing to do with like, there are a lot of human organs that for a long time in early Enlightenment medical science, they were like, we don't need that.
this doesn't
Like,
Yeah,
when it
right.
was like, you definitely need that.
two
Yeah.
lungs,
Yeah.
please.
It doesn't appear to do anything.
And I think that's the same thing with like a lot of these sort of cognitive structures, is that we find ourselves in a situation of like not understanding them. But I think that that absolutely is not evidence that they have no purpose. And so it's just a matter of like starting to try to suss out what the purpose is.
Because we don't even really understand sleep. We don't completely understand what's going on when we sleep, which is fascinating to me. The dream thing is interesting because I know it can be trained. I have a dream journal. I'm not totally religious about it, but I started keeping track of my dreams when I started having these really violent dreams when I got to college. And I now know that I have very violent dreams when I'm stressed. I also have really oblique dreams that are just so obvious, like exactly what I'm worried about. Just like
Yeah.
the dumbest scenarios playing out in the most obvious good guy, bad guy kind of scenarios. I feel like it's kind of exciting. Like, I love that it's on your bucket list to be better at lucid dreaming. And I think that this is something that can be trained. And I think that should be exciting for people because we don't understand this at all. It's a mystery that you can go and be a detective in your own brain and try and understand more about your subconscious and understand what's really lurking under there. And it makes no sense to judge it. And I think there's actually something inherent and helpful about that it's like, you don't need to judge your feelings and emotions and reactions to things. You're just having an experience, and your dreams are a good place to start.
I get bogged down in like, what is consciousness? This is a new form of well, define consciousness. Wait, you can't? Okay. What is subconscious? What is unconscious? What does that mean? Are we talking about awareness? Is consciousness awareness? Is consciousness a new word for soul? And so I'm just over there, just going like, help, I'm like the horse in the slough of despond, just like I'm thinking, because I'm like, who was it, the Chinese poet who was like, last night I dreamed I was a butterfly, but now I'm not sure if I'm the butterfly who's dreaming he's a man.
I think dreams are one of the most interesting things to contemplate when you're trying to understand the relationship between consciousness and reality. Because the way our brains work, the way that we perceive reality, is that sensory information comes in through our senses, through our bodies, and then our brains interpret all that information and then build the world, basically. Like, they're basically like 3D world building engines, like video engines in our brain. So they build this entire fabrication around us that tries to represent the quote unquote reality around us that best fits us for whatever we need to do. And dreams are the same thing. Dreams are our brains building an entire reality that we then, like, it becomes an object of our consciousness, something that we are observing as a sort of immersive, quote unquote, reality. What's very interesting to me is that there are, and this has been studied neurologically, specific parts of our brain that their job is to help us distinguish between what is imagined, which includes dreams, and what is interpreted based on our senses, based on the sensory data that we're taking in. Because there's not an obvious distinction between those two things, like, in our brains, because our brains do the same thing. It's the same work, basically. It's just that one of them needs a tag that says, this is from the sensory input, and the other one gets a tag that says, this is from memories, or this is from, like, a bunch of other input that's not, like, it's like, what's the provenance of this document, the generated world that you are experiencing right now? And for some people, that thing breaks, and that's called schizophrenia. And so they can no longer distinguish between the imagined world that their brain builds and then the quote-unquote real world that their sensory input contributes to building. But it all happens in our brains as objects of consciousness. So it is not consciousness. Like, reality is not consciousness. It is an object of consciousness. But we don't really understand what that means. So anyway, lucid dreaming then is like this really weird liminal space where it's like, well, you're building a new reality in your brain, but that part of you that part of its job is to understand and distinguish between reality. Like, somehow that part knows that this is not reality, that this is a dream, but it is now experiencing that built world that is fiction as reality. It's very, very strange.
I'm going to complicate that by saying it hasn't happened often at all, but I have been visited by dead friends and relatives in dreams, and I knew that it was that person and not some product of a closed system.
Yeah, I mean,
and I know a lot of people who have as well.
The question is, what are the inputs that are contributing to that version of reality that you are experiencing? Because it's like, it could be other entities, it could be other people, it could be God, it could be the devil, it could be aliens, it could be whatever, right? It could be the fabric of reality itself is percolating up through your whatever. So we build our shared reality, supposedly, in the materialist worldview. We build it, our consensus reality, based on sensory data. Like, that's the whole entire enlightenment. We build our shared reality based on sensory data that we try to agree on. That's why scientific journals exist. Does your sensory data match my sensory data? If it doesn't, it's not real. But then it gets complicated because then you're like, well, I think that there's evidence that some dream realities, like dream universes or whatever, are getting inputs that are not from your senses, but they're also not from your brain. Where are they from?
It does make you think about the nature of reality quite a bit, and the difference between, like, thinking about your dreams as something that you're just observing, and then it obviously makes you think about reality and how you're just observing it as well. And it makes you think about...
That's good.
This is part of the reason I feel like it is our job to maintain a beginner's mind pretty much at all times. Because the second that you start to try and pin down what consciousness is when you're looking at what dreams are, you're making an assumption that is probably smaller than the reality of the incomprehensible universe that we don't understand. It's just the nature of our tiny little brains. And so there's something to me that feels deeply human about maintaining a certain amount of unknown around these topics. And so it's super funny to try and study them scientifically. And I think it's actually important. But it's like every time we inch forward, it's like you inch forward, but also say, but I don't know. Because if you start to put it in a box, we're obviously making it smaller than it is. Like God, the fabric of reality, whatever, like people who have left this dimension and have gone to some other realm, like we can't understand it. I'm not sure we should.
We just watched the Conclave. Ray Fiennes gives a homily because the Pope dies and he's the Dean of Cardinals. And in the homily, he's talking about what he perceives to be the greatest sin, which is certainty.
Yeah,
and he talks about the difference between faith and belief, right? And belief is certainty, and therefore it is exclusive, right? But faith is inclusive. Certainty it says, I already know, and therefore it does forego any opportunity for learning. It was a beautiful speech, and I think that, Mal, beginner's mind, all the way, every day.
I shared a quote with you guys on our text thread that we keep. The quote is from that thing I referenced earlier, Basilisk by Paul Kingsnorth. It says, C.S. Lewis knew how the world was set up. He wrote once of his desire for a regenerate science that would replace the broken version we labor under now. He compared our narrow, blinded, analytical understanding of the world to the gaze of the basilisk, the mythical creature which kills a person just by gazing upon it. Everything a basilisk looks at dies. It walks through a dead world, thinking it is seeing reality. And he's using that as a metaphor for Enlightenment version science, which takes things and puts it in a box and isolates it from everything else and tries to study its nature according to that isolation. And in the process, I mean, I'm thinking of butterflies pinned to cork
That's just
boards,
exactly
right?
what I was thinking about.
Everything, almost everything that science studies, it kills. And it's not to say, it doesn't try to. It's not like it wants to kill things. It just sort of does by its nature. When they tried to reach absolute zero, what they discovered is when you take a part, and the only way that they can do it is if they take a particle, the smallest particle they can, like a proton or something, or even a quark, and they take the smallest particle that they can manage to isolate, and they try to isolate it, and they try to hold it still, which in some sense is the greatest form of isolation that you can possibly manage, is to take this thing and stop it from moving completely. And the theory is, if you actually get something to absolute zero, it stops existing. It just goes away. There's nothing left. Like if there's not movement, and movement is connection, right? Because you're moving, whenever you're moving, you're relative to something else. You cannot move alone. You have to move relative to something else that exists. So if you stop something from moving, if you bring it to absolute zero, its temperature, as being a gauge of movement, then you kill it, essentially. You make it cease to exist. And I think that this is something we tend to do in our materials worldview, is we tend to take something and we say, I want to understand this thing independent of everything else. And when you do that, a lot of its essences, a lot of its realities cease existing because they don't exist independently. They exist as they're connected to the rest of the fabric of everything that they're surrounded by.
Which is what the Buddhists call arising codependence.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what it is. Yeah. In all of that, I keep thinking about that video of the baby colossal squid.
Oh, yeah.
In all of its beautiful neon glory. And the fact that we just met it where it was. Yeah. And didn't try to bring it up to the surface.
We just want to see it. We just want to see it.
And then literally we just were like, hello.
Yeah.
And it was like, I'm so beautiful right now. I am too sexy for my shirt. and I'm like, hallelujah. I don't know why I keep thinking about it, but like it's
Because it
either
was
the
good
butterfly
looking.
with a pin in it or the baby colossal squid.
Yeah. More of the
Yeah.
latter, please.
More of the latter, please.
Well, and the latter is all about sort of maintaining this enchantment. Maybe, as Jordan's saying,
Yes, thank you.
maintaining life. Literally, we need that. We need that movement, which kind of means that every time I get my arms, even just around one of you, you'll change. Like if I just tried to be like, here are all the qualities that Jordan possesses, and this is what makes him him. Like put 10 years on that and see what happens. And it's not to say that you're going to become a totally different thing, but you kind of will. And it would be reductive for me to try and keep you from moving and keep you from developing and expanding into something else. And that I feel like we're kind of trying to do that with everything, just to be able to spot it, just to be able to feel safe and comfortable. I don't know. I don't think we're supposed to feel safe and comfortable all the time. I think we're supposed to feel moved.
The world can be quite scary and discomforting, and it gives a lot of people consolation to feel to some degree that they are in control. But
Yeah.
you're never more alive than when you realize that you never were in control.
That's the danger of an AI chatbot telling you that you're God, is that you actually really do need your flaws and your shortcomings and all of the things that make you like that, all the dark stuff about you. That's some of the stuff that will give you the triumphs of your life. So the idea that like that's some kind of salvation, just to be told that I'm perfect, when actually all of the things I struggle with most are the most kind of relatable, connective, and actually something I can work with parts of me. It's actually super, super dark when you look at it that way. I do have like a thought about unknown, magical, mysterious things. It's just the shortest little article that I read from the brighter side this week, talking about dark energy and how we're starting to understand. There's some researchers out of Durham University. They're just using a new model. That's all the really are like the only news in this article is that there's a new model for looking at the universe. And
Math. It's a math news.
There were several articles like that I read this week. But have you heard of the Drake formula or the Drake equation? It's not necessarily like a formula that gets us to a number, but the guy who came up with it was helping us kind of have a framework of the likelihood of life and civilizations in the Milky Way. And what these researchers out of Durham are doing are using kind of the combination of observing dark energy in the universe and the circumstances under which stars can be generated. Those two things they're seeing as the opportunity for not looking at just our universe, but all possible universes. So they're starting to look at it from a multiverse standpoint. And the breaking news of it is that the team studied a fraction of ordinary matter that was converted into stars over the history of the cosmos and the dark energy densities of those areas. And in our universe, our star formation efficiency, that's what they call that. So it's the density of dark matter and star formation efficiency. They combine to create possible life. That's like the bare bones elementary way that I'm trying to break that down for my brain. And in our universe, the star formation efficiency is 23%. But according to Durham's model, it predicts that a higher dark energy density would achieve a star formation efficiency of 27%, which is 4% higher than ours. So the quote from the lead researcher was, surprisingly, we found that even significantly higher dark energy densities would still be compatible with life, suggesting we may not live in the most likely of universes, which is what it is, isn't it? What I like about this is that we totally don't understand dark energy. We just know it's like more of it might mean even more life than our life.
Is it related to dark matter?
I know this is the most ignorant take possible, but I also think it's pretty funny, so I'm going to say it. And I look at these researchers, and I can't see a difference between them and like Harry Potter fanfic writers. Where like, because it seems like people who are very deeply knowledgeable about a very narrow set of ideas that is in no way proven or substantiated in the real world. It's basically just this cosmic puzzle building. And so they basically are like gamers, people who get obsessed with a really obscure game. And you have to know the rules to the game, but they're really hard to learn. Like, you actually have to be kind of a genius to understand the rules of this game. And so the people who understand the rules of this game are like, it's a very, very small cohort of people. And and you would not understand their conversations if you like visited them at their house when they were playing one of their sessions. And so this seems like that to me. I'm like, because like they call it dark matter and dark energy because they know literally nothing about it. Like it's basically they're holes in math equations that they've tried in the models that they've tried to build to represent how the universe works, how galaxies are formed, how stars are formed, how things kind of fit together in a cosmological sense. They build these mathematical models and they're pretty good, but they're big holes in them. And they cannot figure out how to fill with our current physics. And so they're like, well, that's dark matter is what's going on there, and dark energy. And the reason that we can't interact with it is because it's dark, so that light doesn't hit it, and it doesn't interact with any of our traditional forces. And so we can't study it. Actually, you can't study it at all. But we know it's there because if it is there, it proves that our models are right. And I'm just like, guys, like, I mean, I'm fine with you doing this, but I really don't want you telling me that it's any kind of proof or evidence of like the multiverse or whatever. I'm like, I don't believe you, but you can keep doing what you're doing. I think it's really cool. And maybe one day you'll discover something that's actionable or substantiated. But like right now, I'm like, to me, dark matter and dark energy feels very silly, like deeply silly. Like if you want to do it, awesome. Like I don't begrudge people doing their passions and like getting funding for it even, like, fine with me. I think it's a little bit of a waste of money, but like whatever, you know? But yeah, I don't believe it. I don't believe it's real.
I don't believe it's real? I don't know if it's a thing or not.
No, I don't.
We have a name for it.
Yeah, we
named it.
Yeah.
It's defined by what it's not.
Yeah.
That was my thought I read it many times, and most of it was just as a sort of science lesson that even is just like, I didn't find it the most readable thing in the world. So I was like, I'm struggling to gather all of this. This feels like it's for other dark matter nerds and dark energy nerds. But I did what I could with it. But I was like, at what point do multiple multiverses come into this? I guess it's just that we're starting to open our minds even more to the idea that, like, man, not only do we not know what this is, but we really don't know what this is. You know what I mean? It's like, it might not just be our universe. It could be all of them. It's just funny to me. I don't know. And I will admit, I like dark matter personally and dark energy because it's so mysterious. Who doesn't love a mysterious man?
Yeah. Well, I think that's why they get funding. I think it's sexy. I think it's been very sexy for a long time. I think it has about as much credence as string theory, though. And I think string theory is a load of bullcrap.
My formerly stated position that as a race, in terms of our cognitive development, that we are still essentially infants who are just now learning object permanence with universe mommy.
Yes.
And so, you know, I will say that, like, one time I was at a gig in Stockholm and I was standing outside of the stage door, and this full-on Swedish goth guy strode down the street, and he was head to toe in his fucking regalia, and he had this look of pure anguish on his face, you know, with just the right kind of like dark eye makeup, and the hair was just so, and the studs on his amazing sight in a country sort of, you know, distinguished by its homogeneity. And so just based on that experience, I can tell you that dark energy exists.
Oh, come on, Tom. That was the longest setup for a dad joke I've ever heard in my life. I loved it. I loved every moment of it, actually. Thanks for joining us, everyone.
Anyway, goodbye, Cosmosis listeners.
Thank you for being here. Did we scare you?
We are just about to hit an hour and 20 minutes on this recording. I want everyone to know that so that when they see how long this podcast episode is, they'll be so impressed. They'll be so impressed. They'll be like, man, that Jordan is a hell of
28 minutes. We got 28
really
minutes.
Great editor.
It's like, please don't do that. The editing's going to look like a fucking Max Headroom. Pepsi commercial.
All right, please thank us for getting this into a manageable length by subscribing on Substack and leaving us a good review or sharing a story with us so we have something else to talk about other than the freaking headlines, which
it's getting darker.
Yeah, we need
thank
some
God
good
for
stuff.
Mallory Everton.
We need
thank God.
Yeah, honestly.
Mallory, thank God. Mallory just shows up and is like, here's my light. I shine my light through thee. And I'm like, oh, right.
This would be a pretty bad show without Mallory, and it would be a pretty bad show without Tom.
we did.
It was not.
Look, we're a three-legged stool, and I love it.
We love each other, and we love
do.
you, and
We
now
do.
we're saying goodbye.
Goodbye.